Time's up. Have your own.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Well, also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monk boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
The day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and how, but God damn it.
You were setting up so strong. You were going to make a joke. You were going to be like, I'm not here today. You were ready for it.
I was going to go straight. No joke, no bit, no nothing. I was just going to say, hail and howdy, everybody. Welcome to Saturday Night Drive-In. And what do I do? Blah, 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 blah. I can't win, can I? I just can't. Nope. Anyway, welcome to Saturday Night Drive-In. We are one day removed from 4th of July, 2025. Happy 4th of July. I hope everybody had a safe holiday. Jed, did you lose any digits yesterday?
I didn't lose any digits. No, I watched fireworks from the safety of my own home out the window at the giant Disney ones that were visible in the distance. So, yep, never put myself in danger and got free entertainment off of Disney. So I called it a win.
Yeah, it is a win. Yeah, I talked about this on Friday. I had fireworks every 4th of July on the Navesink River in Red Bank, New Jersey, where they would put on a massive display and there was always a party at the house. So I've seen fireworks up close and nice and safe. It's great. You don't have to do anything. A lot of people had fun yesterday, barbecue, stuff like that. I was safe and comfortable in the home here. It was a good time though. And I hope everybody had a safe time. I am a proud patriot. I love my country. And we're going to talk about a movie that is all about loving one's country or fighting for the creation of one's country. Jed, you've chosen the Patriot for tonight's discussion.
I have chosen the Patriot, yes, for this 4th of July edition of Saturday Night Drive-In. I thought, what better film to celebrate patriotism than The Patriot? And I know we're going to have controversial opinions on this one because, as we talked about in the green room, it's a good movie, but it's a flawed movie like anything else. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what people expect. This is a Ronald Emmerich movie. He was the king of the dumb, fun, over-the-top action patriotic films. That's his whole thing. So, of course, it's got some issues in the plot department and the pacing department and stuff like that. But he's great at making likable characters that love America, that do crazy awesome things. That's what he's great at.
Apparently, I watched the extended edition, which is only 10 minutes longer.
Is that it?
I mean, according to what I watched, it was 2 hours 55 minutes, and I just looked up the runtime of the theatrical release, 2 hours 45 minutes. So I'm
I
not
watched the
sure.
theatrical, so I don't know what's the
I'm not
separation.
sure. Listen, I've only seen this a handful of times, usually on network television. So I'm assuming I've only seen the theatrical version up until when I watched it. I watched it over a couple of days yesterday, yesterday and day before. Ugh, I can't speak today. But yeah, so I'm not even sure what was added. And let's be honest, one of the weaknesses of the film is 2 hours 45 minutes.
It's way too long. This isn't a case like Independence Day. I will vehemently say that the extended edition of Independence Day is better, but that film has a lot more characters, a lot more going on, multiple places of interest, and the extended edition's only 2.5 hours long, I believe, or something like that. So it's not a ridiculous, almost 3-hour movie. And I think that is where most of the issues with this film lie, is they tried to tell the entire story of the war through the lens of this family, and just doing that whole thing, the whole war from at least beginning to end in Carolina. The war was obviously already started up in New England by the time the film started, but doing that much content was a bit excessive, in my opinion. We could have padded out the montages in the second act and really cut off a lot of
I agree. And part of my problem, and I have very few problems, but they are problems that did linger with me through the movie. One of my problems is that while of course we know when this is taking place, they're not giving us timestamps of until the very last scene, 1781. With the siege
passage of time is very weak.
Yeah, so it's hard to know, because one of my things is that, of course, time had lapsed, and at certain point, it hints that Mel Gibson's character Ben gets it on with his sister-in-law, and now they're together. And then at the very end of the movie, she's holding a baby, and it's like, when did they have time? When did that happen? when
he's got to replace some of his dead kids, man. He's got to hurry.
Hey, he already had done the
he filled his quota.
He filled his quota with his first wife. He had like what, 7 kids?
7. Yeah, it was 7 kids.
7 kids. Yes, he lost his 2 eldest sons, which is part of the tragedy of the movie. And that is another one of my things. I think that at certain points, the tragedy is piled on too quickly at once.
Really?
When Gabriel's new wife gets murdered in the barn, where they all get burned.
And the church, yeah.
And then Gabriel goes off of vengeance, which is legitimate. I understand. That's good character work right there. He is incensed, and he takes some of the men along with. I love the subtle performance of Rene Auberjonois as the Reverend. I love Rene Auberjonois. He's one of my favorite character actors. He's Odo, goddammit.
He did a great job, especially that scene where he's like a shepherd must tend to his flock and sometimes fight the wolves.
That is when I thought, man, Rene bringing it right there. That was good. But that's a legitimate thing. Goes off and fights that, but it leads to 2 of my problems. One, I felt that was too much tragedy, one on top of the other. And also, it lent to predictability. This movie is predictable every step of the way. There's only one, even a moment that one moment that really gets me the entire movie every time is when Ben goes see his family at the free slave encampment. And when he's leaving, and little Susan hadn't spoken, she's afraid of him, and she just goes, "Papa, don't leave." That got me.
That's my favorite scene in the movie. I choke up every time.
That got me. I was like,
it's character. Yeah. That little actress is phenomenal. That's one of the best child performances I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, she was explosive and impactful, and that moment was powerful. I was like, oh man, little girl crying, "Papa, don't leave, don't go, I love you, just stay." I'm like, oh man, this scared me. That got me. That got me. I hadn't seen this in a while, and I forgot about that scene, and it got me again. I was like, oh, but you knew it was going to happen. Even though I had forgotten it, I knew it was going to happen, and it still gets me. So the movie is predictable, but it's predictable that is acceptable, but it is predictable, and I prefer,
100%.
I prefer some surprise. So you know that when Gabriel's going to charge off to fight what is it? What's his
Jason Isaacs'
Jason Isaacs Colonel. He's gonna die.
It's too early in the film for Jason to die, so it's very predictable. I think
Gabriel's
a lot of this film is predictable. I love the trope of the retired warrior who tries to be peaceful, who is forced back into it and ends up being the best at war. We've seen this a million times. This is God of War. This is not Braveheart, but there's a lot of films that have this trope. And I think this movie does it very well, but you're 100% right. This is trope the movie. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do wish we would have gotten a little bit more originality.
It's trope done well.
Yes,
it's trope
very
done well, where it's satisfying and you don't feel like you've been baited and switched, and they're trying to subvert. There's no subversion of expectations, which was the norm back in the day. No subversion of expectations. You're going to get exactly what you expect out of this movie. Mel Gibson fighting for his family and kicking ass. And that's satisfying on all levels. But the predictability of it is, I don't reach the heights of excitement that I would every time I watch it. I mean, some people put this movie on a pedestal. Like last night on Ballbusters, I said it's a good movie with flaws, and those bastards get kicking me off the show for 5 minutes. Just because I said it's a good movie.
Of course it has flaws. It's a lot of fun, though. I get pumped up at the end of the movie. I guess we're jumping all over the place.
Yeah, we're going to have to.
It's a very well-watched movie, but at the end of the film, when Mel Gibson takes the standard bearer and runs back into the fray, gets the line back together, that's a great moment.
Great.
Of course, it's predictable, but I get pumped for that. I want to go, yeah, America! And it hits the right beats for that I enjoy every single time, even with the blow.
And it has solid character work throughout the whole thing. Everybody's character growth and predictability and patterns are still done well. I mean, they're the whole line, the whole through line for Ben's character, stay the course. That's the through line for his character. We learned that his dead wife told him, stay the course. Everybody keeps telling him to stay the course. And in that moment, it's either break and fight Jason Isaacs in that moment or grab the flag and hold the line. And he chooses the greater good, hold the line. And he still gets his fight against Jason Isaacs.
You knew that had to happen. I'm sure he knew that because Jason Isaacs hated him as much as Mel Gibson hated Jason Isaacs. So of course that fight was bound to happen. So he did the logical thing as much as anything else. The fight will come. There's a more important thing to do right now.
Yeah. So it works all out nicely, but it's predictable. It's fun, predictable, but it's predictable. And as I said, to me, the tragedy of the Gabriel's wife dying and then Gabriel dying right on top of each other, I felt that's a little too much. It's double tragedy.
It might have been better if to space it out a little bit. The massacre had happened maybe a week beforehand or something like that. So Gabriel had to go track down Jason Isaacs just to pad it out a little bit.
It was instant. And
they were camped within a few miles from there. Jason Isaac would know, hey, we need to be prepared for retaliation if he was that close. So it does feel like they nerfed Jason a little bit.
And the thing is, like right there, they arrive and we just witnessed a horrific moment where the butcher just locks these people in a church and burns them alive. We're watching them all crying and desperate. They know they're dead. They can't get out. You're still dealing with the impact of that. And then now you have to watch Gabriel, who we have watched survive and have slim victories and this and that, and grows a really good character throughout the whole movie, then succumb to vengeance and get himself killed because he had to go check to get the kill.
He was trying to be his dad. I fully believe that with that knife, he wasn't just going to check the kill. I thought he was going to go full on dissecting that person like Mel did at the beginning of the movie.
The tomahawk chop.
That's what I thought he was going to do. Obviously, he didn't have a tomahawk, but I thought he was going to eviscerate the corpse, whether or not it was alive. And that was his downfall, I think.
Yeah.
He was trying to be his father without the skill in which his father had developed previously.
For a skill honed over many battles. And yes, he had been fighting clearly for a couple of years now, but he was not the warrior that his father was, even though he was pretty good. That scene as the Reverend dies and tosses up the rifle and he grabs out of there. It's so over the top. And I was like, what is this, John Wick?
A lot of slow-mo, but not Snyder slow-mo.
Yeah, it's acceptable slow-mo.
It's a good amount, a good speed.
Yeah. But it's just like, man, I can understand having Gabriel dying. Of course I do. I never want Gabriel to die. Thomas, I can live with. Everett from Everwood, I can live with him dying. He's an annoying little punk.
Well, he was just dumb in that moment. It makes sense for his character. I'm not saying it's not, but just, dude, you're surrounded by British soldiers. You're going to run to try to help your brother. It's moronic.
And the butcher's just waiting for an excuse to kill one of you at that point. He's just like, just give me an excuse. I will shoot one of you. I want to. I get off on this shit.
Jason Isaac has no remorse. I mean, I love the moment in in the fort once Mel Gibson's been able to rescue the prisoners with his ploy with the dummies and whatnot. And Jason Isaacs is like, oh, he hasn't given us a reason to attack him yet. Well, I'll give him a reason. And he starts taunting about the death of a child that he caused. That's really the moment where you, if you hadn't figured out already, that he's irredeemable. This isn't a complicated villain. This isn't a I actually really like the general Cornwallis, the way he's portrayed, because he's a gentleman in war. He's still going to try to follow the rules for the most part, and he's not a stereotypical villain. He's there for complicated reasons, and I like that. Yeah, he's just a soldier.
Well, he's an aristocrat and a soldier. He's an aristocrat and a soldier.
And it's played very well, but I wouldn't consider him a villain necessarily, not in like an evil type of way. He's obviously an antagonist in the film, but Jason Isaacs is full on evil, full on villain. And it's great to have that balance, because we love the irredeemable villains, but we also love the complicated villains.
And Lord Cornwallis, he's a historical figure. He's a real historical figure. Everybody else outside of like Cornwallis and maybe a few other generals in there, these are all fictional characters.
Yeah.
These are not real people. They are created to push the narrative of what the revolution was like at a certain point here. And you can't make him an outright villain because there are historical documents of how Cornwallis behaved. So you can't turn him into that. So you create Jason Isaacs, Colonel Butcher, to be this horrific, honorless man who will do anything in order to gain accolades and victory, because, as he says, this is the only way I'm going to advance in society, is through victory. And when we have our new kingdom here, I want Ohio.
Which is like, who asked for Ohio?
That was my thought. Having lived in Ohio for 4 years of my life, who would want to stay in Ohio?
He must not have been there yet.
Yeah, to our friends in Ohio, you know what I'm talking about. It's not nice. Ohio's not pretty and not nice, and the weather's terrible.
But as someone who also studies history, not to I don't study it to the same degree as you, but we're both fans of history. This is the depiction of a rival general that I need to see every time General Lee from the Civil War is shown. He's not generic evil man. I don't know if you've seen the movie Gettysburg with like Jeff Daniels and Sam Elliott. That's how they portray him with Michael Sheen's performance, and I think that is an important aspect of war movies, especially historical war movies, because not every conflict is black and white. This isn't World War II, and even in World War II, there were people like we saw in The Great Escape who didn't want to be there, like that guard who just was trying to finish out his term and not get sent to the front. There are ways to show these conflicts in complicated ways without demonizing the other side. Like England, I make fun of England a lot, especially during this period. I'm very much a Free Scotland type person from back in the day. They've earned it after this much time, but I don't necessarily blame them for thinking, hey, you're our colonies. What the hell are you doing? It's complicated from both sides. Obviously, the American Revolution absolutely needed to happen. It was a great victory and led to a great nation. But I don't blame a lot of the soldiers for being involved in that conflict. Well, it's all about the actions you take, like Jason Isaacs. I mean, it's not the fact that he was in the war; it's what he was.
Here's a perfect example: when the catalyst incident happens, the inciting incident happens, and the Butcher kills Thomas. Up until that point, when that first lieutenant arrives, before the Butcher arrives, and he's surveying the Martin household, where they're tending to all wounded soldiers of both sides, he's grateful. He's a nice. He is there, and he's got some humanity in him, and he looks around, and he's ready to let it all go. But then Jason Isaacs shows up, and he's like, "Kill everybody, burn it all down." And that guy is hesitant. He doesn't want to do it, because he realizes that is not that's crossing the line. But he's a soldier and he follows orders. And then it's really, really dark, because during that, the boys who had been watching that lieutenant, they saw him not want to do that. But the first one that dies is that lieutenant, when one of Ben's sons, the third eldest son, just shoots him just shoots him, bang, first shot, gets him. And that's to me, that hit me, because I thought, wow, that guy was not a bad person. He didn't want to do this, but he was following his orders. And yes, I was just following orders. is a horrible thing to say based upon historical references, but still, he was
It depends
following
on the
orders.
context. There are
Yeah.
different scales to just following orders,
Yeah.
and being sent to a war front that you don't agree in the war isn't necessarily one of those that you have to blame the soldier for.
So he didn't want to do that. So it was a shame that a man who clearly understood that what he had to do there was wrong is the first one to die in that situation. And that hit me there. But we've been talking about these different characters and their actors. I will say one thing: this is a very well cast movie and very well performed movie. Mel Gibson, Jason Isaacs, Heath Ledger, all of them straight down, and General Cornwallis, played by Tom Wilkinson. This is a great cast all the way around. Everybody, and that's one of the reasons you can enjoy this movie, because everybody's giving it their all. There's nobody mails it in. Nobody mails in it. And so it's great performance. But I'm going to pose a question to you now.
All right.
Who is the Patriot?
The assumption is that it's Mel Gibson, but I've always liked the interpretation
It's
that
Gabriel.
It was Gabriel. That's always been my interpretation because of the way he treats the flag, repairs it slowly, and it's his death and the way he treated the flag that motivated Mel Gibson to carry through the end of the film. It was his patriotism that was the banner more than anything else.
I'm right there with you. I'm watching this movie, in the way we watch this, and we're going to review it. I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's called The Patriot, and they have Mel Gibson all over all the work this, but no, the Patriot is Gabriel, because he's the one that choose go to war. Now, Mel Gibson has every right to not join the war in the beginning because he has to protect his family. He's all they have.
And I love that speech he gives. I love complicated figures from history, especially the Revolutionary War. That's why one of the founding fathers that I studied the most growing up was John Adams. I love the way he handled the Boston Massacre. It was a complicated situation, and maybe it wasn't right to have that be the inciting incident for a lot of the war that happened up in Massachusetts. But in this case, yeah, that speech he gives, do I think taxation without representation is wrong? Absolutely. Do I think the American colonies should and can govern themselves? Yes, most likely. But am I willing to go to war and let all these innocents die? This war won't be fought on a foreign battlefield. It would be fought in our homes with our children carrying the weapons. And that's a very powerful speech to me. And it's great to have that other military man step in there right when people start calling Mel Gibson a coward, to say, hey, I trust this man with my life more than anybody else. He is not a coward. And it's a great performance of a complicated character, because I don't see him as a patriot, just like you said. He ends up being a patriot by the end of the film. So there's absolutely the argument that he's the title character, but he's reluctant patriot until he's forced to by his son's patriotism. And it was Thomas's patriotism that triggered the massacre. Like Thomas's death, and that led to him going to kill those 20 soldiers with the tomahawk. And yeah, it was his son's patriotism that forced him to develop patriotism of his own.
And he says the line when he defeats Jason Isaacs, he says, my sons were better men than I am. They were better
Gabriel
men.
was.
Gabriel was. Thomas didn't have a chance to do anything because he was dumb.
I did like the bullet with the melting down of the toys being the final shot.
Yeah, I mean, that was symbolic. Like that's essentially Thomas's revenge. We're gonna kill a man with every one of his little tin toy soldiers. But so I am firmly in the camp of Gabriel is the patriot, because he's the one that after that early battle, he spends all those years putting that flag back together. All that time stitching it up. You get a good look at it, the patchwork done to it. And that to me, that when I realized that and I saw him take the flag out, I thought, yes, Gabriel is the patriot. He was the one that believed in it from the beginning. He's the one who wanted to go off and fight. And is that a young man being earnest? Of course. That a young man, emotions driving him, of course. But
being
he's
a little naive.
And a little naive, yeah. But that is the definition of what a young man does in that situation. And Mel Gibson's Ben, his whole motivation is to protect his family. That's his motivation. The entire movie. It's not to see the birth of a nation. It's simply to protect his family and his community, the people around him.
Yeah,
it's not
about. He does care about his community.
Yeah, it's not about making America. At the end, it is, like you said,
It's
the
right near
character.
the end. It's
Yeah.
right before that final battle that's the moment he becomes a patriot, I think. And we see that with him choosing to go after the standard bearer and help
Instead of
carry the flag
revenge.
for it instead of
Yep.
revenge.
Yeah.
That's a decision he would not have made earlier on in the film, I don't think.
I agree. Yeah, so I'm glad we're on the same page there because I feel that that's the truth, and I feel that in discussions I hear about this, I never hear this come up in that discussion, at least regular discussions. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Mel Gibson's the Patriot. He's revolutionary Braveheart. He's doing the thing. No, his motivations are correct in what he's doing. I'm doing this to protect my family and to look after my son during these battles. Oh, I'm lagging.
Oh yeah, your screen's frozen.
I'm frozen.
Your camera.
All right. Well, turn off camera. I was completely lagged out there. Yeah, we were having problems last night, but that was restream, so I don't know. Well, it might be me. You never know. My internet wiring in my building sucks. It's not so much.
StreamYards have changed a lot in the last day.
Yeah, so they were having problems with a few other things I saw. So I am now Avatar Adam. I apologize, everybody, but my camera is frozen. I'd have to probably leave and come back, and that's gonna.
Avatar Adam's still a better movie than any Avatar film.
Yes. And I'm not blue and I don't fuck animals. So anyway, what's going to happen here then is, or what's happening there is that I agree with you. He becomes the patriot at the end because that's his whole story: revenge, protection, or the country. And in that moment, without anybody else on the field to protect, he chooses to protect the birth of the nation. And that is when he becomes the patriot. But the patriot was Gabriel the whole time. That's I believe that, and I would like to see anybody. I'd like to see anybody make an argument against that.
I agree with that interpretation, and that's definitely the one I prefer. I understand though saying it's Mel Gibson because it's not the title of the film doesn't necessarily have to relate to a constant in the film. It could be easily renamed to Making of the Patriot. And that would be Mel Gibson. So I can still see the argument for Mel Gibson because he does become a patriot in the final moments of the film. But Gabriel, I think, is the stronger candidate for the title character.
Yeah, I agree entirely. And here's the thing. I think Gabriel's a great character through the whole movie. I think watching his evolution and him understanding what it means to go to war, because that really first powerful thing, he had obviously seen shit early on as a messenger and a courier. But it's right after, I guess it's right after he's been rescued and he's going to go back, and Ben decides to go after him, and he comes upon the empty house that has just been looted, and he's watching the battle from the window. He hadn't probably seen a full combat yet, like the actual battles, and Ben comes up behind him, and here's my next topic that I want to talk about, and this is frustrating for me. It's not frustrating because of the movie. It's a historical thing that always has frustrated me. And the Revolutionary War was one of the first times that they had to break from that standard. Watching that battle, Ben says General Green or whatever
Gates.
Gates. General Gates. He's too wedded.
Green that might be the better name for him because he flees.
Yeah, General Gates. He's too wedded to the English type of warfare, going musket to musket with the redcoats. This is a historian's criticism now. My as someone who has, as a part-time amateur historian who studied history, I have a retarded history degree and stuff like that. So I think about these things. I despise 17th, 18th, and 19th century warfare. I despise the European tactics
of formations just lining up,
marching towards each other, and just standing there and shooting. The idea of cover never occurs to you, and you're just throwing men to the butcher wheel.
Well, how did Britain conquer most of the known world with those tactics during the 17th and 18th century?
Well, technologies, in some cases, technology, and also wars of attrition, because that's what it was here. It was Britain's going to win in the war of attrition like that because they have the better soldiers, they have the better arms, and they have. Even though it takes time to get a fleet to send troops over, they do have more people. They have a bigger stock to pull from. And the Americans do not have the training or the organization to get it done.
Now, And I 100% agree with you. I hate this style of warfare. That's why I think guerrilla warfare was so successful for us during the Revolutionary War, because they were not equipped to handle it. It might make more sense in European battlefields where they were closer to cities, more open flame, but in the countryside, in a wild continent like North America was at the time, it just was nonsensical. But if even with that dumb tactic, the British were the best in the world at that tactic at that
Yes.
time. You don't use their tactic that they're perfect at
Yeah.
in a conflict with them. So that's why I think, yeah, Gates was moronic for accomplishing that. I do have a historical, I don't know if the right word is theory, but hypothesis, we'll say, for why the British loved this type of formation warfare, and a lot of people in Europe did. I think it might be a holdover from the Roman era. I actually just read of Roman Matters in Military, whatever that book's called, a real Roman novel about the story. It's not a story, textbook basically about how Romans conducted themselves in war and how they planned it, everything. And they used a lot of formations as well. It made more sense for them because they had shields, though, and the way that they were doing shield formations and whatnot made those formations a lot more effective against mindless hordes and guerrilla warfare. But the Roman influence on the world, especially Europe at that time, was so strong because Rome had only fallen a few centuries beforehand and had been massively influential. I mean, the Catholic Church was still the dominating force in the world at that time, that I think it was a holdover from the Romans why they were doing the formation warfare, and it just didn't make sense anymore. But they hadn't caught up to realize that Roman tactics don't apply in this case anymore.
I mean, I'm right there with you, because I'm thinking back to when we watched Braveheart a few weeks ago. It still made sense there, melee, and when you're firing in their artillery, their ranged weapons or bows and arrows, you could defend with a shield against arrows being shot at you. There's no defense against a bullet screaming at you in this time, in this era. You stand there, you take it, you die, you hope that you don't lose something. Oh, shut up. You shut up. No one asked you. You're not here.
Well, that's why a century and a half after this, we saw World War I, where, I mean, the guns were better. Obviously, you didn't have to take 5 minutes to reload one shot, but it became trench warfare because they realized, hey, maybe cover is a good idea. And
I think warfare in Europe was a disaster.
It was a disaster. But guns complicated all military tactics and strategy. It made moot a lot of the established ways of doing things, and it took people a long time, I think, to figure out how to adapt to guns. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, because, and that brings it up. Guerrilla warfare style, you mentioned it. That is why the Continental Army and the militiamen were able to eventually win, because they used tactics that the British were not truly familiar with, and that even when they saw them during the French and Indian War, they still didn't adapt to those types of tactics. They would still stand in the line and fire and wait.
Well, the French were still fighting that way, and then you had the colonials who were helping you at that time, who weren't as formation driven. So yeah, the French, I think, balanced out the British tactics during the French and Indian War. Because they're in that mindset too. The French were just as bad. They're not as efficient at this style of fighting, at least in that era, but they still did the same thing.
Exactly. So that always bugs me. It's always, and this is just, like I said, a historical nitpick. I hate watching 17th, 18th, 19th century warfare, because it's just so frustrating that they were wedded to this. And that goes to the point when they discover Cornwallis's belongings. And Ben is thumbing through it. He says, yeah, this man knows more about warfare than we ever will. But he knows about antiquated warfare. So you have to change the rule book. And Ben does do that. And you get the montage of the militiamen doing what they're supposed to do. Now, I did find it really dumb, though, in the moment where all the men get captured and he has to do the dummy routine. Why did you break your strategy and stand in the middle of the road and demand them to surrender? That, to me, that felt stupid. To do that at that point.
Oh, you're talking about when? I know what moment you're talking about. Yeah,
when Jason Isaacs
why didn't you just open fire like you've done this whole time from
suddenly
defendable positions?
Exactly. Suddenly you change your tactics, and it feels like this, again, criticism, predictability. You had to create a moment where you had to have your character have a flaw.
Yeah, but it was in intentionally
Ben was-
nerfing a character for the
Exactly.
sake of the plot. Because
Ben was so much
Dermy
smarter
saying
than
that they were outnumbered at that point. They had outnumbered British soldiers in the past and still chosen to just
Maneuver.
open fire on them.
To me, it's a smart character behaving stupid create a moment where they have to come out of it in another smart way. And to me, that's a little bit of a convoluted storytelling right there. Ben had already proven to be smarter than the men they were fighting by employing guerrilla tactics and traps and this and that. And suddenly to have him do that, say, I'm going to stay in the middle of the road, surrender, give us what you got. It's like, why are you standing out there doing that? It's the first time you've done
That felt
this.
like a Robin Hood tactic. That's what I was getting vibes of in that moment, and it just doesn't fit.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit a smart man who and the whole montage up to that point is bloodless victories for their side. They ambush the redcoats, they kill them all, they take the booty, and they get the hell out of there, leaving Jason Isaacs, Butcher, flustered, and Cornwallis pissed off that they're losing to these peasants, these militiamen who are beneath me. So that seemed like a really dumb moment in order to have him then do a brilliant moment with the whole dummies as prisoners trick. Now, of course, it sets up some excellent back and forth because then Ben and Cornwallis talk to each other like civilized men. Ben, who is respectful of the enemy commanding officer, because he says, and that goes back to what we talked about earlier, Cornwallis is not a villain. He's simply a military man who's there to do the job. But but then there's doing it with English honor. But then I know they had to do it in order to push the story forward, but I think it is having him basically accept the fact that I will now allow Jason Isaacs to do the dirty work for me, even though I know it's wrong. I understand it's a hypocrisy, and it lends hypocrisy to his character. But I still feel like
I think it makes sense with how prideful he's been shown, because I love that exchange like you're talking about between Ben and Cornwallis and the way they're talking about, I'll show your officers honor as soon as they treat our peasant folk with honor, or our locals with honor. That exchange is phenomenal. And I love how, this is my interpretation of it, I don't know if you take it this way. Obviously, Ben didn't know the names of enough officers to give out a list of names for these captured officers, and him saying they refuse to give me their names, I took that as a tactic to capitalize off of British pride. So Cornwallis is like, yeah, my officers are so well trained and so hardened that they will not give up any information to the enemy. And Ben was able to take advantage of that to make this ploy happen. I see that as Ben knowingly targeting pride. And instead of just, I don't have any other choice. I've just got to say, oh yeah, there's some lieutenants and stuff. Like, it felt way more intentional than just no other choice.
It's, as I said, you have a smart character doing something smart, but it led from a stupid decision because of his intelligence. It doesn't make sense. That's my problem with that whole section of that scene, though, those collected scenes there. It starts with a stupid act by a smart man who should have known better based upon all his actions up to that point.
See, there are ways that you could have done this scene a lot better that don't nerf the intelligent and
somebody else
way more
Ben.
trap.
Have somebody else besides Ben fall for that.
Somebody else besides Ben, or have the way that I would do it is I put two regiments or whatever on either side of this road, have someone go in between that is the bait, and then after the bait's been conquered and everyone's getting like, you know what, we conquered it, let's see what's in this wagon, that's when the two forces come in from either side and swoop in and capture everyone. You wait until complacency has occurred. That's a simple tactic that wouldn't have nerfed Ben, and it would have been a lot more in line with Jason Isaacs, I think, because he is a cunning man, if an evil one.
Yeah, exactly. And let's give Jason Isaacs all the credit. One thing Jason Isaacs does well is play evil bastards.
I don't know if I've ever seen him be a good person.
Neither have I. He plays the bad guy. So Jason Isaacs' performance as the Colonel Butcher, I was just going to call him Colonel Butcher, is fantastic. And because, like you said earlier, you want to hate this man, and you hate him. There's nothing redeeming about him. And he basically admits one point, I cannot return to England with honor. I'm done. So I'll do whatever it takes to get glory here and station here in the new empire. And it's glorious to watch an unredeemable villain. It's great. They don't know how to do that anymore. And that is one of the strengths of telling the story the way they did this way is you can't make Cornwallis, as I said earlier, you cannot make him a villain because there's historical knowledge of who he was and how he behaved. But you can create somebody under him that is the most despicable son of a bitch you're ever going to see, that enjoys killing women and children, burning people alive. And
he gets off on it.
Oh,
absolutely. There is some sadism. You can't do what he does and not be a sadist.
Oh, completely. And you need villains like that. Unforgivable, unredeemable villains. And I'm not saying you can't have redeemable villains. It's just that's something that's been pushed too much lately in current day cinema. Too many villains that, they have a good reason for doing this. No, there is no good reason for massacring and butchering women and children and civilians during war like that.
I think a lot of people have gotten lost in the idea of either it's an irredeemable villain or one who's secretly a good guy that we want to root for that's misunderstood. There is great middle ground. Like, I mean, it's a cliche example at this point, especially in the modern era, but Thanos, you don't agree with Thanos. A genocide on that level is never okay, obviously, but he has a cogent argument that you realize he's a complicated character and you see where he's coming from. Those are some of my favorite villains where they're obviously irredeemable, that they're obviously a foe that you must conquer, but they have better reasons for what they're doing than, I like baby blood. There's thought behind it. What?
Yeah. Saying I like baby blood. You're saying that.
So I've been watching Supernatural again, doing a rewatch with my wife, and there's some baby blood reference into it. That's what I was thinking of.
Anyway, but so that just goes into, you have great performance, Jason Isaacs. Mel Gibson, he brings it throughout the entire movie. And I'm not going to say this is one of his best performances, but it's up there. It's up there because he manages to, as we said earlier, be the complicated character that is Benjamin Martin. You understand that he's haunted by a man haunted by his past actions, that he once upon a time went too far in a moment of emotion, thinking I was right to do these horrific, barbaric things on the battlefield. And that's also, think about that. That's a great comparison. There before the grace go he could have very easily become somebody like Jason Isaacs' Butcher.
With what he describes, when we finally find out what he did in the wilderness years, or in the wilderness campaign, that is some messed up stuff, like putting all the eyes, the ears, and the tongues in baskets to send to the Cherokee. That's really fucked up. So yeah, I agree that Jason Isaacs is a mirror of what Mel could have been. His worst impulses if he hadn't had his family, because his family is his guiding influence throughout the entire film, his motivation for everything up until the final moments of the film. And I think it is important to say what the love of a family can do to a man, the responsibility of a family can do to a man to turn you from Jason Isaacs to Mel Gibson. I think it's a powerful comparison.
Yeah, and it works. And you add in, Mel Gibson is very good at what I like to think of a sort of physical comedy, where he's capable of having certain expressions or physical actions. My favorite thing about his comic performance in this is the rocking chair stuff, where the movie opens with him trying to build the rocking chair, and apparently after you learn quickly he just can't seem to get it right. There's something about it, he can't get it right. And when and I love it, they managed to bring it back when he goes to meet Cornwallis. He sees the rocking chair there, and clearly he carefully sits in it thinking it's going to break, but no, it's been properly made. And he's then inspecting it when Cornwallis walks in. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. But you know what is great? This is the quality of the script. He doesn't say, oh, excuse me, my hobby is making rocking chairs, and I'm just trying to figure out how it works.
And trust the audience.
Yes.
I cannot tell you how much I love when movies set up something and pay it off without dialogue or without excessive dialogue. I know it's a hot button issue at this point, but Jurassic World Rebirth actually is able to pull this off with Mahershala Ali's character. They never explain his backstory in full detail. You get 3 hints about it through the whole movie up until his payoff. His payoff is ass. I won't say that. His payoff is terrible, but just the way that they trust us to figure it out, and when that payoff comes, it's how the payoff resolves, but how it starts. You don't need a line like, "Hey, this is about this and that. Oh, I got to do this because of this and that." He just does it, and just a look is all you need for the audience to realize, yeah, this is about this. And that's so rare these days that you have to appreciate when you see it in an older film like this, because it's consistent. There isn't just one moment like this with the rocking chair. Everything with the flag. I don't think there's a scene with Gabriel's flag where there's really dialogue about it. It's all Heath Ledger and later on Mel Gibson's performance when they're interacting with this flag. And yet we completely understand what they're thinking and feeling without the French dude walking up and say, "Hey, that's a tattered old flag. Where'd you get that?" "Oh, my son found it on a bloody battlefield and has been slowly repairing it for the last 2 years." We didn't need that.
Yeah.
And it's
simply
always so great to
understood.
see.
It's simply understood. And that's the power of it. I mean, even when the flag is out and he's patching it up during conversations, they're talking about other things. And it's just understood that the dedication, the patriotism of Gabriel, going back to that, is on display without throwing it in your face. So I love it that you can have a moment where he's expecting a rocking chair and the commander of the British forces in the South walks in and he just make this kind of little combo. And that's what Mel Gibson is good at. A little bit of physical comedy of flusteredness, but then suddenly slip easily into, "General, sir, Lord Cornwallis, I'm here to discuss terms," or this, that. And then they have a great back and forth between really two good actors who know how to deliver lines, know how to emote, know how to perfect pause, stuff like that. That is the quality that this movie delivers. It delivers quality acting, quality performances, solid writing. Sometimes there are cheesy moments in the script. There are some cheesy moments here and there, but
it's carried by its cast, though.
yes,
I think.
Yeah, exactly. And there are no moments where I'm going, "Oh God, please let it end." There's not moments like that. I do wish something could move faster. You mentioned earlier, the pacing could be tighter here and there. Do we need as many montages?
It's the
as we
biggest
get?
problem in the film. It is bloated. I was checking. I watched the entire third act. Even though I'm enjoying the entire film, it doesn't deserve that. The theatrical cut should have been the extended edition. If that were the case, I wouldn't have a problem. It's an extended. You expect it to be longer, whatnot, but 2 hours, 20 minutes, I think you could have gotten the exact same story without missing anything of value.
Because of when I started watching it and other things I have to do, I broke this into 3 different sittings, finished watching it. So even though I was aware of it, it wasn't beating me over the head because I didn't sit down and just watch it for 3 hours straight. I broke it into literally...
Make it a mini series and it's okay.
I did it. I watched the first hour, then I stopped and did other things, and I didn't get back to it till the next day. Then I watched the next hour, and then I finished it while eating dinner last night. You know, I watched I watched the final battle during dinner, the last part of third act. So I broke it up, knowing that it was going to be long. And I'll be honest, I sometimes was doing something else during the first hour, but I mean, still, I was watching it, and they could have shortened a few things here and there, like just take 3 minutes here, 3 minutes there, 4 minutes here, and just shorten it up without taking away, because you do need the impactful scenes. There are many impactful scenes, like one of the militiamen who was Ben's old buddy from the French and Indian War, and he has a wife and a son, and after the barbarism of the butcher at the beginning of the third act, he finds his wife and son dead, and you think, what's he going to do? Oh no, he ends himself. He can't go on. You can't cut something like that out.
No,
that's important, because that shows someone that's the comparison where, and that also, it's another parallel to Ben. Ben has lost equally that already, but he still has things he needs to live for and fight for. But that man just lost everything.
Oh, if his entire family had been killed when Thomas died, there's no way Ben would have made it through the movie at all. Like, he wouldn't have survived.
He might have become the butcher, is what he might have done, because he was always keeping himself in check. Because you see what happens when the initial assault on the caravan taking Gabriel to be hung when him and his sons go at that final moment when the three boys are watching their father literally just keep hacking that man to death long after he's dead. That was him giving it to his evil thoughts because of what happened to Thomas, but he managed to get it out in a horrific way, but then contain it and get back to business of protecting his family.
Is that an example of healthy venting?
I approve. I approve.
If you're gonna do it,
hey, hey man, it's a fight for your life. You're saving your son. It's not all things are permitted when you're saving your son from being hung. All things were, So, but point is though, I don't think Ben would have ended himself. I think he would have ended himself in a blaze of glory.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he would have gone on a revenge quest without thinking through it at all. One man against the fort alone type thing.
Yeah. But to watch,
which would have been kind of interesting to see him go after Cornwallis's fort alone in the dead of night. But it's a different type of movie. That's a very different type of movie.
But to watch that man then just Minecraft himself in that moment, that's like holy shit.
And the best performance in that scene is the Reverend.
Yeah, because that's a man. Because that to the Reverend, that is like
it's a mortal sin.
Well, are they still Catholic at this point?
I mean,
I don't know if they're Catholic.
They might have been.
Maybe they might, because we're past the Reformation at this point. So
I mean, there were still Catholics in
the colonies
at this time.
Perhaps I mean it's more close to Church of England because the Church of England does exist, and if they're all colonists, so it's more likely. Either way, point is either way that is something unconscionable to a man of God to watch somebody that also he feels like maybe he failed at a level. Not because we don't know what they're thinking, because while all the side characters are well flushed out in a decent enough way, we don't know what's going on in their lives. Even though there's a predictability about the guy who's like, I ain't working with no Negro slave. And then, of course, the slave's going to save his life. Again, the predictability. You know that's going to come. And then I'm honored to fight beside you on this final battlefield. You know that predictability. But it's acceptable predictability because it's the kind of, I'll say it, shallow storytelling that one is okay with in that level. These guys are not going to get a lot, but what they get is enough to fulfill what you expect from them. So we've been pretty wide ranging. I've kind of said all I want to say. Do you have anything you want to
add? No, not particularly. Just final thoughts and wrapping up. I think because it's all about the characters.
Let's bring this up. I had known until this watching, paying attention. This is another John Williams score.
I didn't realize that either until watching the credits this time.
I gotta say, it's a rather underwhelming John Williams score. There's nothing memorable in it.
I agree. That's why I never thought it was his before, because it isn't that iconic. I can
hear him, knowing it's him, and like during the final battle, I hear John Williams practiced tones and notes in that. I can hear it, but overall, it's nothing that there. I at this point now, I couldn't hum a single bar of the score to you right now.
That's the thing. With it being John Williams, I would expect at least the main theme to be memorable, but none of it. Like a Last of the Mohicans type style, where there's one song that you remember and then you don't remember anything else from that. Exactly. That's what I'd at least expect from something like this. But yeah, the music's
it's John
Williams. Good.
It's John Williams.
It fits the scene.
I'm gonna say it's John Williams kind of mailing it in.
And it's a little bit out of his element. Like he does experiment with the instruments that were common in the time, wartime flutes and drums or whatnot, and I'm just guessing that it was maybe outside of his style at that point.
It's just there's no rising crescendos, no massive beats, there's no orchestral gigantism, titanitism that you get from John Williams. There's nothing that I can say that's the theme of the Patriot. I will point in anybody to say, whistle the theme of the Patriot for me right now. Hum it for me. And I don't know if you can. And it's John Williams, and you can't do that. So while it's John Williams, for the first time ever, he doesn't elevate the movie with his score.
I agree. I think Alan Silvestri would have been a much better choice because he's really good at that patriotic type soundtracks, and he was popular at this time as well. So yeah, I would have gone more for Alan Silvestri.
I'd be scoring this half a point higher if the John Williams track elevated the movie, the score of the movie, but it didn't. It didn't. In fact, there were times I realized, oh, wait, I'm listening to John Williams. Why am I forgetting I'm listening to John Williams? What's going on here? This isn't normal. for me, and I love John Williams. So it's kind of disappointing. I'm gonna say that. And we know I lose my shit over John Williams scores. I'm thinking back to when we reviewed Memoirs of a Geisha and what he did in that movie. That incredible, beautiful,
and
soundtrack.
that was very outside his wheelhouse
bewitching,
as well. So
a bewitching soundtrack with that one. And this one, he just kind of said, "All right, da 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 da, we're done." I'm what year was this made? 2000, 2003?
2000.
Yeah,
they
2000.
were filming it before I was born.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just curious, what other movies in 2000 with John Williams working on something else in 2000?
Harry Potter.
Oh no,
Harry Potter
prequel
came out the next year.
Prequel trilogy. He's working on a freaking prequel trilogy. That's what he was doing. What am I talking about?
Yeah, prequels and Harry Potter at once. Yeah, he phoned in this movie.
He gave this very little attention because this is literally he's working on Attack of the Clones right then at that point, which is what you say. All prequel soundtracks are incredible. The scores for all three prequel movies are incredible. So he's working on Harry Potter. He's working on the second prequel trilogy. He said, we're going to attack the clones. That's where he was putting his attention. This was an afterthought. It was an afterthought to that. I'm just saying that. That's what I feel. Knowing what he's working on in 2000, yeah, I think this movie was an afterthought. I don't know. It depends. I don't know about that. Maybe if there's
I don't know if you tell John Williams to do anything by this point.
When you've got John Williams doing your score, you let him work. And I think he was just kind of, I think he did a normal John Williams. He didn't try to push the boundaries of his genius.
And this is a feature of John Williams. I think with a lot of other composers, we wouldn't be having this discussion because some other composers have the occasional great score like Howard Shore for the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but we never really talk about him in any of his other scores. Exactly. Even Hans Zimmer, who's one of the most prolific composers or most well-known ones after John Williams, there's plenty of forgettable soundtracks from Hans Zimmer as well. I think it's just really staple of John Williams. He consistently gave us some of the best soundtracks in human history that, you know, we expect that from him always, but we wouldn't judge another composer this harshly. So it's bound to happen, but at least it doesn't detract from the film.
Exactly. It doesn't detract film, but it didn't do, we always say it didn't elevate it to the next level. And I can clearly tell you that I lost half a point for me on that one, which is my score would be half a point higher if John Williams' score had elevated the moments. I mean, that final battle music is outstanding, but that's about all there is that I remember from the score. And I still hear other John Williams scores in it. He didn't create anything really new for
He plagiarized himself.
Sort of. Yeah, well, at that point, he's already got a songbook thicker than my head. So, I mean, it's John Williams. And it's John Williams, like you said. John Williams, whenever this discuss of who scores the greatest, is always going to be John Williams versus John Williams in the end. He is the most prolific modern score composer in cinema from the end of the 20th century into the 21st century. And I mean, Hans Zimmer and some others, they're all going to battle for second and third place, but it's always going to be John Williams at number one, no doubt. But all right, so that's the last thing I wanted to bring up. So Jed, it is your week. You get to score the movie first.
Perfect. So yeah, this film I think is a hell of a great time. I enjoy watching it every time I do, and I understand why it's the classic that it is and why people hold it in such high esteem, especially this time of the year. I think the biggest problem with the movie is its pacing. If you trim up the pacing a little bit, get it to a shorter runtime, a lot of the problems with this film would disappear. My favorite scene by far, though, is the one that we mentioned at the beginning of the stream where the daughter Susan talks for the first time to Ben. That is just a heartbreaking scene. I'll say whatever you want, just please don't go. That performance alone from that little girl elevates this film for me. I don't think there's another child actor or actress that I would put on the same level as her, especially at her age. She's what, 7? There are countless adults currently working in the industry who are not as talented as she was at that time. And yeah, a lot of this film is by the numbers, and it's hard to review a by the numbers film, in my opinion, because yes, is the plot sound? Yeah, I think for the most part, everything progresses in a logical fashion, but that's also because it's super formulaic, so it's unoriginal. So how do you balance that? Do you say, hey, it's tight, everything works, so we score it highly, or it's tight, but it's not original whatsoever and entirely predictable, we'll rate it lower? So I think I came to a balance with all of this, balancing out the performances, which were fantastic, giving this in the end a 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. I'm pretty much right there with you. I enjoy the performances. The story is solid. It's not disappointing. It doesn't make you cringe, but it loses points for even it's predictable, but it's a good predictable, but it's still predictable. There's no surprises of anything that happens in the story. You know when somebody's going to die. You know what these side character storylines are going to end up being. At the same time, it loses points for me, as I said, with the score. It's John Williams. I expect more. At the same time, I also lose points when the characters are portrayed one way and then behave stupidly, like I described with the whole deciding to stop the British caravan instead of just killing everybody and taking the stuff. It doesn't make sense to me when a smart character behaves stupidly just for the plot convenience, so you can behave brilliantly in a scene later. That bothered me, but it is a solid movie. The choreography is great. It allowed us, and we can say the choreography is great because we bitched about the accurate representation of 18th century, 19th century warfare, which drives us crazy. So it's very good about that. Of course, it's not completely historically accurate because we're dealing with fictional characters, but we allow for that. The escapism is good. And in the end, I'm landing at an 8 out of 10. An 8 out of 10. So I'm not that far off. Would have been 8.5 if that John Williams score had just been epic. It would have been fine. Anyway, so I got to be honest, I didn't give a single thought to what the movie is next week. So I completely forgot. I think for a second I had something a couple days ago, but I forgot what it was. It's what I was thinking about. So I can't say what we're doing next week. I apologize once again that I am off camera because my camera wussed out halfway through the stream. I tried to fix it while we were talking and it would not go back on. So I apologize for not having my camera on at the end here. But either way, thank you everybody for joining us this week. We hope you had a good time. Hit those like buttons, subscribe to the channels, and we will see you next week with whatever movie I'll let you guys know by tomorrow. I'll let you guys know by tomorrow roundtable. I'll figure something out in the next 12 hours, 15 hours or so. So good night, everybody. We'll see you later.